In a home-built aircraft, we're going to have at least one battery, and with the many fuel-injected engines on the market today, we might even have two batteries. So there's going to be a need for battery connections with heavy cables, and our need to connect or crimp terminals onto those heavy wires. How many large cable terminal connections are you going to need for your aircraft? Well, here's an example if we do a quick count on this firewall. Of course, we have a battery, and a battery has a positive and negative connection, which will need to make up a cable and an appropriate terminal. Now, because we have a fuel-injected engine going into this aircraft, we have two batteries, which will double the number of cable connections we need to make, because it's kind of a redundant dual battery system, almost. Now, the other end of our large cable from the battery has to go to either the starter on the engine, or in this case, onto one of our contactors with the large connection here. And out of that contactor is another large connection, which will go to our bus or to the starter of the engine. And because we have two batteries, we have a second contactor, and it requires a large cable terminal connection going in and coming out. So by the time we're done adding up the number of large cables, each with their own custom length and each with an appropriate terminal to match the device that we're wiring it to, we have quite a few custom connections we need to make. Now, there are companies that will make up these heavy cables to your specification. You tell them what wire size, for example, a number 4 or a number 6, how long you want it, and then what type of terminals or terminations you want on the end and what size hole. And of course, they charge for this. But there's no reason that you can't make these cables up yourself with the proper crimping tool. Here are two examples of wires that could be used for our starting circuit coming from the battery. Now, this is a number 6 and this is a number 4. Obviously, the 4 is quite a bit heavier, and this is actually welding cable, so it has a heavier jacket on it. This number 6 has the approved Tefzel coating, which is good for our aircraft. And for short runs, a number 6 is more than adequate for your starting circuit. If your battery was going to be in the back of the plane and you had a long run to make, then possibly a number 4 would be better. But in both cases, we need to put on some pretty heavy-duty terminals and crimp them very securely so that we get a good transfer of power between the cable and wherever the terminal is headed. Here are some examples of terminal ends that we attach to our large cables. Two things or two criteria you need to be concerned with when ordering these is, number 1, what size bolt or stud are you going to connect these terminals to? For example, here's a 5/16, and here's one for a 1/4 inch bolt or stud. Then the other criteria you need to be concerned about is what size wire will it be attached to. This one is designed for a number 6, both of these, and these two are made for a number 8 wire. Notice the smaller collar here. So any size stud that you want can be ordered with any size wire that you want to attach it to. Also notice you can get some of them with an insulated collar. That's not quite so important because typically we use the uninsulated style and then add some heat shrink tubing and shrink this on after attaching the wire. The ratcheting crimper that we use on the rest of our aircraft's wiring cannot handle the large cables larger than a size number 10. So our 8s, 6s, and 4 cables cannot get their terminals put on with this tool. So what should we use? There are a number of tools that can be used successfully with varying degrees of success and varying degrees of price. Let's take a look at this one. This is a hydraulic crimper. You can get this from Amazon or eBay, or even Harbor Freight makes one like it. It was only about $35, shipping included. Basically, it has a pump handle and a jaw with dies in it that are going to squeeze and compress your terminal onto the wire, and then a valve to release the jaws after you pump them up. So it's relatively easy to use, and the key is to selecting the proper dies. The dies go into the jaw, they're removable, you just pull them out. And they come in pairs. There's one in the top and one in the bottom. Mine are listed as metric sizes rather than the AWG wire sizes, but other models have the dies in the proper wire sizes, but you pick the ones that match. Here are the dies my kit came with, and they range from very large ones for very large battery cables, the 1 and double aught size, all the way down to about a number 10 wire and everything in between. Mine are labeled in metric sizes, so I need to convert them to the AWG wire size, but there are kits where the dies are labeled directly in the wire size. So if you're selecting a kit, it's preferable to get one where the wire size is marked directly. Otherwise, you have to do a simple conversion from the metric size. I believe that is in millimeters of square area once it's closed. But anyhow, you select the proper dies and insert them into the jaws and start squeezing. I have prepared a number 6 wire. I trimmed off about a 1/2 inch of the insulation, and I'm going to install a ring terminal, uninsulated, so we're going to have to put some heat shrink tubing on a little bit later, but I'm just going to slip the terminal, which is made for a number 6 wire, right over the end, and I will proceed with the proper die in the jaw to squeeze. And just start pumping. And if we can see that crimp, this is one of those crimps that will never come off. It has really pressed that on uniformly, and what I like is all the way around that is compressed on as tight as possible. Now, of course, we just slide our heat shrink and use our heat gun and shrink that on. But very simple to use, and you know that you've got a crimp that's not going to come off. And what's nice too is no matter what wire size you have, now this is a 6, if you're using a 4, a larger one, or 8, a smaller one for other applications, you just change the dies in there and you're all set. Very quick and very professional.